president of the British Medical Association. What more can a man want?
Revenge!
I don't like it. Two strangers now are in the town, a lady and a daughter.
England, my poor England, what have they done to you? Don't touch me. That's one thing I've noticed returning to these shores. There's a great deal more touching going on. If I want to be touched, I have people who love me who can touch me. Touching is what loved ones are for, because loving takes the sting out of it. Delia, Lady Rumpers, widow of General Sir Frederick Rumpers, tiger to his friends, and to his enemies too, by God. Does the name Rumpers ring a bell?
This first exercise is the most basic of all the Tai Chi movements. It's actually separate set of hooks, the waist and the back. Then just run through the movement slowly. Again, it's what we call a form of non-strenuous exercise, where the movements are done very slow.
Hunter Valley Theatre Company just keeps getting better and better. Its new show, Habeas Corpus, repeats the success of the Playboy of the Western world and shows again the fine sense of team spirit the company has developed. Habeas Corpus is described as a farce, but it's really far superior to the in and out of bed routine that the word usually implies. While it's laughing at mankind's weaknesses, it's also gently mocking itself. And while the characters are the usual farce types, it's impossible not to feel sympathy with them for their many weaknesses. That means that Habeas Corpus is not just a well-oiled machine, although it is that, but it's also a warm and sometimes thoughtful experience. As is so often the way with farce, a lot of the jokes centre around the human body, but Habeas Corpus isn't really vulgar at all. It's just deliciously funny. And the characters, who include a lecherous clergyman, a world-weary doctor, a sex-starved wife and a busybody cleaning lady, aren't mechanical either. They're really quite endearing. Every member of the cast contributed to the very satisfying sense of completeness the production has, but special mention must go to John Doyle as the romantically inclined but lecherous doctor. He was really marvellous. Of course, the production really showed the signs of Arnie Neamey's golden touch. He's a fabulous director. Unfortunately, the show is the last in Hunter Valley Theatre Company's first series of plays. Let's hope the second isn't far off.
In the prescribed areas of the City of Newcastle, the City of Sydney and the City of Wollongong, they are totally banned, this steel jawed type trap. And
you can see why.
you can see why that went off.
And have you been able to prosecute anyone in the case of Charlie the cat?
Well, not as yet, but we are hopeful of a successful prosecution.
What happens if people are troubled by neighbours' cats? Is there a legal way of catching them?
Yes, there most certainly is a legal way, and it's a way we're always trying to tell people. This is definitely not the legal way with a steel-jawed trap, but there is an approved type, trapdoor type trap, which can be hired from most firms, including the RSPCA. We have them too, because they're approved by RSPCA, and if they hire those out, they can get rid of the most of their unwanted cats.
Certainly some people are born with the gift of being able to make decisions and lead people, and they seem to acquire that as they go through life. But I think most of us need to be aware of the problems of committing excesses, say in the behavioural area, of being aware of when it is that we treat people in such a way that they'll rebel against us or they won't desire to carry out our wishes. So in management education today, I think the main thing is to make people acquainted of where they can go wrong, and to provide them with as many tools and techniques as we can to enable them to be aware of the complexity of the situations that they're dealing with, so they don't make great mistakes.
You mentioned excesses. Do you see many instances of this amongst Australian managers?
Well, in the area that I am particularly interested, industrial relations, I think that managers have a lot to answer for. Traditionally in this country, we allowed managers to hire and fire and decide the way work was organised. Now that that's being challenged a lot more by trade unions and governments and other kinds of authorities, I think managers are not faring too well.
The situation in Newcastle is this, that the local clerks process the pays for the local linesmen and technicians, and if the clerks' dispute is a long, drawn-out affair, the technicians and linesmen may well not get paid, and if that happens, they may too become embroiled in this latest telecom dispute.
It's important that people still understand that this is their city hall, the public, and that public meetings are still held, but it's also been refurbished as a conference centre and a seminar for seminars and conferences, and that's the way that we hope to regain the money, the ratepayers' money that's been spent on it. And so we really want it to be the City Hall, but we also want to clarify the name. It's not a town hall, it's the City Hall, but it's also a very important function centre for such things as conferences.
Was held here, and I do believe I won. And members in his speech, exports are growing stronger. We want Australia to be the lucky country for all Australians, and not some people just being the lucky people. You know, of course, that with the resources boom and that there will be a great deal of wealth, and it must come to all people. We don't want to see that just going to the few.
Well, the new symbol says Matara, which the old one didn't. The old one was just the hand of friendship, and now we've incorporated the word as well.
Why have you decided to change it?
Well, the old symbol had lasted for about 2 decades since Matara began. We felt we needed something which said Matara, and we also wanted to mark the difference between the old Matara and the new Matara. Last year, as you realised, Matara changed to being much more of a community festival, and we wanted to show that we are different.
And how are preparations for the 1981 Matara Festival going?
Well, it's shaping up very well. I think we'll surprise a lot of people with the type of festival that it is. However, we really desperately do need some sponsorship.
In what form?
Well, we've had good cooperation from the Council, the Premier's Department, and some firms like BHP, but we need a lot more money for specific events. For instance, the procession. We need about $1,000 just for 4 bands alone, and if we don't get the money, then I'm afraid some of the events we'd like to put on won't go ahead.
Just across the road, 35 home sites will be sold by the Lands Department in 4 weeks' time. They'll be sold by ballot for prices between $19,500 and $25,000. At least 500 people have already notified the Lands Department, telling them they're interested in getting land in this Hawk's Nest area.
In the Supreme Court of New South Wales, in its Equity Division, Mr. Just Damages, 1.
Rights issues. And
Yes.
what about restaurant? Right, we said we would today.
I must strongly refute and deny the allegations made by Mr. McHugh in open court today. I note that the allegations were made today, were made for the first time, and were made when protected by court privilege. The record of the company and its management over the past 20 years supports this view. Within 5 minutes of the conclusion of the meeting, and only 20 minutes after the court had made its orders, the company was formally advised by the Wannsee interests that they had sold in excess of 1 million shares and rights. These Wannsee shares have been purchased by Hadjoin Pty Limited, and the acquisition of this parcel may require a public hearing by the Australian Broadcasting Tribunal before the transfers in question may be registered.
Can you tell me what that decision was and what the situation of the Star purchase is?
The company entered into a contract with the company that owns the Newcastle Star, if that's the name of it. Not coming from here, I'm not familiar with the name of its publication.
Listen, mate, do you mind just leaving us while we're having our meeting, please?
Oh, sorry, I thought the guy down here asked you to...
Well, we'll make a statement afterwards, mate.
Alright.
Saying this is a building operation and that the FIA doesn't have no coverage under their rules, that these fellas have joined the BLF, which is the union that's got the legal coverage. The fellas here in the BLF are decided to return to work tomorrow, demanding off the employers the BLF site rates pay according to the site rates agreement, and that they want all the BLF conditions on the job.
Well, some of the men have told me that their employers have told them that if they join the BLF, they've got the sack. So where does that leave you? I mean, if the men are sacked, well, they haven't got a job.
Well, I suppose it comes down to the point there that the boss never gives you anything. You've got to go out and fight for it. But we'll have to look at that situation tomorrow.
Their decision was to continue the stoppage, and they'll meet again next Tuesday to hear a report of any developments, if any.
Well, just what effect has the lack of AWU employees on this site had so far?
Well, the work in the site is coming to a halt because there's no AWU labour there to assist the tradesmen, and the work that they normally do is themselves is petering out.
The Newcastle Telecom clerks are so far the only clerks in New South Wales to have resorted to the radical action of striking every time a clerk is stood down. And today, a meeting of the Newcastle Telecom clerks here at the Federated Ironworkers Building in Mayfield voted to continue that action until Friday.
Which effectively means that all the business offices will be closed up.
So why has Newcastle alone decided to go on strike following the stand downs?
The feeling's been so strong in membership here as to the way stand downs have been implemented. That is, that the people that have been actually standing people down have been members of their own association, and the people that are covered by the same award. And these people in high management positions are the ones that stand to gain the most from any wage increase that we receive.
Well, it's surprisingly enough, I think it involves about 25% of the people in the community, say in a lifetime. I would think that a factor that a lot of people wouldn't know, that there is more people treated in psychiatric hospitals than cancer, heart disease, motor accidents combined.
So that's obviously why you brought this booth out into the public.
Well, we feel that we want to educate the public in the area of mental health. We feel that there's a certain stigma that's required to be dealt with, and we asked the people of Newcastle or other areas to come out and not to be afraid to talk about mental illness.
So what's been the reaction of the booth so far this week?
Well, a surprising thing to us, we have spoken to people who have come along. What did surprise us mostly was the young people that are coming along and seeking information. It's either for their friends or their families, and we feel this is really good.
Yes, I'm sure of it. And the reason why I drew those 4 different pictures of how people behave was to show to people that they can't pursue to extremity any particular point of view, that there has to be compromise. And the final position which I put, I think, was a compromise one, which I think we can all agree with, because it supported employment, it supported control of pollution, it met most of the objections of the environmentalists, it showed how we can go forward to attract world capital and can expand to continue to be the principal region in Australia. I think it can all be reconciled, but it all had to be set out, and I hope people will discuss it.
My view, and needless to say, a quorum is present. 438,470 to requisition the calling of an extraordinary meeting. I hope to see you here late tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock. The meeting stands adjourned.
To the Secretary, and by service of a written form of notice on the set.
I come from Adelaide, and I'm going back there this afternoon. Oh, right. Thanks. Well, the company is served, and well, at a meeting of directors of NBN Limited on the 4th of June, the directors resolved to make a new rights issue on the basis of 1 share for each 5 shares held. Last Friday, on the 10th of July, 148 individual shareholders had subscribed for their entitlement and were allotted such shares as a result of and in accordance with such rights issue. At a meeting of directors this morning, the 13th of July, 81, preceding the extraordinary general meeting, the directors resolved to confirm the allotment of such issues, such shares. At 11:40 a.m. this morning, the company was served with orders of the Supreme Court of New South Wales, issued at the instance of Pty Limited, restraining those 148 individual shareholders and the company from voting at the extraordinary general meeting, called at the requisition of Pty Limited today and until 2 p.m. tomorrow. Copies of those orders will be available. The extraordinary general meeting has been adjourned until 4 p.m. tomorrow, 14th of July.
We had 265 teams last year. We anticipate about 300 this year.
That's a lot of people, isn't it?
It is, and it takes a lot of organisation.
Not only men either.
No, we've had about 2/3 men and 1/3 women.
From all walks of life too.
Yes, we've had Aussie rules, soccer, you name it, we cater for them.
It started out with the Department of Sport and Recreation as a keep fit thing, but now it's a very serious sport with a lot of people, isn't it?
Yes, Lee, we've got a lot of competition, but that's good. I think that improves the standard of the sport.
It must take a lot of organisation from people.
It does, and we've got a very good secretary the last few years, and she makes it a lot easier for all of us.
Peter, you're now connected with the International Sports Centre, and the availability of grounds now is not the problem it was in the early days.
No, that's right, Lee, but just the same, with 265 teams, it puts a hell of a tax on the grounds, but we hope we'll overcome that in the near future.
In the last couple of years, you've been able to put money into the Sports Centre to aid government money coming in to assist with developing the grounds. Can you see that happening again?
Yes, well, we hope that the government will help us, but with Jerry's sponsorship, Jerry Edge's sponsorship, that money will go into the grounds and make them a lot better than they are at the moment.
That's a pretty important thing for any sport these days, isn't it, sponsorship?
I think so, and we're very lucky to have, a Newcastle firm interested in sponsoring us.